an online coach and your sales calls are feeling inconsistent, this video is probably going to explain why. Because most coaches assume that if they're not booking enough calls, then it must be a lead issue. They need to generate more leads. They need to post more content. They need to reach out more. But in reality, most of the coaches I speak to already have those opportunities entering their DMs every single day. People are watching their content. People are watching their stories. People are replying to their outreach a lot of the time. Conversations are happening, yet somehow none of them ever seem to turn into book calls. And unfortunately, the most frustrating part for most of you online coaches is the fact you have no idea how to identify what's actually going wrong and why you're not booking enough sales calls from these opportunities. In this video, I'm going to explain to you the 4 biggest leaks I see inside every coach's DM process and how to identify whether or not they're costing you sales calls right now. Before I show you those 4 leaks, let me tell you about Ashley. We started working with her in around January time. She has over 200,000 followers on Instagram. Before engaging with her content every day, her inbox was also pretty full. From the outside, most people would probably assume that she was absolutely smashing it. Behind the scenes, things look very different. One week she'd book 10 sales calls, the next week she'd get no more than 1 or 2. And because these results were so inconsistent, despite the fact that she's been doing this coaching business for over 20 years, she couldn't break past 10k per month. And at first she thought she just needed more visibility, more content, more traffic, more effort basically. But when we actually looked at the numbers, that wasn't the issue at all. The issue was that every single conversation inside her DMs was being handled differently. A different setup, a different follow-up, different question, different standards. There was no system. And once we fixed that, everything changed. And within 90 days, she went from struggling to break 10k per month to getting 70k per month. Not because she suddenly went viral, she was already going viral. Not because she suddenly got more followers, she already had a lot of followers. Because we fixed what happened after a lead actually entered into the conversation. And that's exactly what I want to help you identify today. Problem number 1, and I've already hinted at it, but I need to get it through to you. You don't have a lead problem most of the time. Most of you think it's that simple that you need to just go and post more, go and get more leads, do more outreach. And none of those things are bad. If you can get more leads to your business, then who's complaining? But here's the question I actually want you to ask yourself before you start focusing on. How many conversations are already happening in your DMs every day, every week? Because there's people there that are already responding to your content, responding to your stories, responding to your outreach, but you're not able to convert. Good to go and get more leads, but there's absolutely no point if you can't convert the ones you already have. Let's just put it like this. If I give you 1,000 new leads tomorrow, but you still have the same conversion that you have right now, then what would happen? You'd still have the same problem. You'd have a few more book calls, but you'd miss out on tons more. You don't scale by pouring more leads into an already broken process. You scale by improving what you already have. Then you can pour more leads in. Which brings me on to my second point. You're having conversations, not running the system. Most of you are approaching your DM something like this. Either you send the first message or they do. You then ask them a few questions. Then they might even ask you 1 or 2 questions, but overall you're just figuring it out as you go along. And that's exactly why your results are inconsistent. Because when every single conversation is completely different, then the outcomes are going to be completely different as well. And I'm not saying you should be copy and pasting the same questions and the same conversation each time, but the system and the structure overall should be the exact same. You should be following the same process, just adapting it to each lead. You often hear buzzwords like script and framework, and most people tend to use framework more and more. The reason is because a script is more robotic, a framework will bring consistency whilst also adapting, like I said, to each lead. You need to get that specific structure in place. First questions might be about their goal and how specific you want to get about that goal as well. That's very important. How long it's been for them, get into their pain and motivation, what their struggle's been, and then slowly move into talking about coaching and moving on into a call. I've actually done another video breaking down exactly what questions and in what order you should be asking and how it leads every lead closer to a call. So go ahead and watch this video once you're finished with this one. But with this, the conversations will still feel natural, but you will know that every step, every question has a purpose. But most of you are skipping this step, which is why you're probably booking 10 calls one week or even one day and then 1 or 2 the next. You're missing the key part, which is consistency. And it's all because you have no systems or no structure. It has absolutely nothing to do with luck or the type of leads that you're bringing in. 3, very important, you're not tracking the right thing. This one is absolutely huge. A lot of you might know a couple of numbers. A, how many book calls you're getting. B, how much money you're making. And a lot of you probably don't even know how many book calls you're getting per day, per month, per week, whatever. Even if that's all you know, then that's a huge problem. Because if bookings drop tomorrow, next week or next month, do you actually know why? Was it because there was fewer conversations started? Was it because less people were qualified? Was it because people were dropping off at a certain point? Was it because links weren't being sent? Was it because follow-ups weren't being done? But you're not tracking any of it, so you won't have a clue. Imagine you're a fitness coach, for example, you're trying to improve one of your clients' results without tracking their weight, their calories, their workouts, their measurements. You wouldn't know where to begin finding out where the problem is if they stagnate. It's the exact same with your DM setting process. Start tracking these numbers. Because once you know there's a problem, having those numbers will help you easily identify where the actual problem is, what needs to change, and what needs to stay the same even when it's going well. The problem probably isn't that something isn't working, as simple as that. The problem is that you don't know what's working and what isn't. And that brings me on to my 4th and final point, and I can't believe how many setters don't bother to do this and how many coaches don't bother to do this. Your lack of follow-ups is costing you money. Let me just give you a little statistic just to put this into perspective. Only 25% of all of your bookings across this space will come without a single follow-up. So that means 3/4 of your bookings and your potential deals need a follow-up somewhere in the conversation, whether that means they've dropped off, they didn't reply to the first question, whatever. They need one somewhere. You're missing out on 75% of your bookings and your deals if you're not doing this. And yet most of you are terrible at it. And I know this, by the way, because I go into your DMs every day. I go message a load of random coaches every day just to see how you or your setter is taking me through the process. And most of the time, not most of the time actually, but a lot of the time, I will purposely not respond to a question just to see if I get a follow-up. I'll check 3 or 4 days later and I've had nothing. Sometimes as well, I've been sent a booking link and you're not even following up with me. Those are your hottest leads and you're just going to let them fall off. And very quickly, the opportunity is gone. That boiling hot lead is now a cold lead. Or they've been snapped up by someone else who did follow up, who did keep on, who did show them that they were actually interested in helping them. You didn't lose that money because they weren't interested. You lost that money because you weren't interested in following up with them. You weren't interested in tracking them. And even when you do follow up, it's often generic. Just checking in. Any thoughts? Still interested? Like, never going to work. What you've got to do, assuming that you've actually had a decent conversation up to this point, is bring something up that they already said in the conversations. Customize each follow-up. That will get a much higher rate of response. Because most importantly, it will actually remind them why they started the conversation in the first place, and it's easy to pick it back up from there. Make sure you're following up. I can't believe I have to beat this into you, but please follow up. This is exactly what happened with our client Mason, by the way. When we first met just a few months ago, he was doing no more than about 3 to 5k per month. The interesting thing is, as much as he didn't have as big of a page as Ashley, he already did have leads. People were already reaching out, engaging with his stories, engaging with his content. He had a pretty healthy page, but everything was being managed manually. There was no tracking involved, so whenever he got busy, follow-up stopped, conversations got buried, he didn't know why people were falling off or when they were falling off. There was no structure to any of it, and because of that, opportunities disappeared. And because he wasn't tracking any of this, he had no idea how much revenue was actually slipping through the crack. But once we implemented a structured appointment setting system, everything became much more predictable again. We knew exactly where prospects were in the process, exactly where most people are falling off, exactly who needs to be followed up with, the exact numbers. We knew the targets were all being hit because the numbers were being tracked. And like I said, the results weren't just more book calls, it wasn't just more deals, it was consistency. And it was less of a headache for him and for us, quite frankly, as well. Today, just a few months later, he's generating between 10 and 15k per month, and that's bound to only go up from here because he has a way more predictable sales pipeline and structure. And that's what most of you actually want. You don't just want spikes here and there, you want consistency. So if you are struggling to book enough sales calls right now, don't automatically assume you need more leads. Again, it will help, but you'll still have the same problem. So instead, ask yourself these 4 questions. Do I have a structured conversation process? Do I have a qualification framework? Am I tracking the right numbers? And do I have a reliable follow-up system? Because if the answer to any of those is no, there's a good chance that that's where the bottleneck is. I'm telling you, most of you already have a good amount of opportunities entering your DM. You just need to fix whatever is stopping most of them from ending up in your calendar. And when you fix that, you won't even need more leads. You'll simply get more results from the leads you already have. In my next video, I'm going to break down exactly what metrics you should be tracking to identify bottlenecks, improve conversion rates, and create a far more predictable setting pipeline and flow of book calls. Because once you know your numbers, you can stop guessing. And that's where your real growth will actually start.